Today on CityCast DC, we have a bonus sponsored episode from Alliance Française. They're the leading center for French language, French culture, and Francophone resources in DC, so truly a small but mighty organization. And this year, Alliance Française is turning 120 years old. The organization's executive director, Sarah Diligenti, is here to share how Alliance Française is celebrating and how you can get involved. Today is Monday, March 10th. I'm Senior Executive Producer Priyanka Tilve, and here's what DC is talking about. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Priyanka. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, it's great chatting with you. And I hear that we're approaching a huge milestone. Alliance Française is celebrating 120 years. How do you think it's shaped DC's relationship with French culture?
That's a very interesting question. So yes, we were founded in DC in 1905 by then Ambassador Jules Jusserand. Actually, he was so popular in DC, the guy even has a memorial on 16th Street.
Oh, no way.
There's a statue or something like that on 16th Street. I saw it a couple of years back. I think that the French-American relationship has always been strong because of, we came to your rescue at the time when you were fighting the Brits. And then you came to our rescue in both World War I and World War II. Of course, it's been sort of a on and off relationship because there's been events that were not so good between the United States and France. But Alliance Française, being there for 120 years, has always tried to maintain the relationship and to strengthen any links between our two countries. So that's part of our mission, actually, is to build transatlantic bridges and international connections, not only between France and the United States, but with France and the United States and the rest of the French-speaking world, which is quite big, as we know. But yes, it's shaped our relationship. We've had, back in 1968, Jackie Kennedy's mother, Madame Bouvier, actually attended the first fashion show we ever had. So that's how strong the links were. And we've had a few people attend, soirée from the local political and judicial spheres before COVID.
Yeah, and in DC, we see evidence of the obsession with French culture everywhere. We see it in Lafont having made our city plan. We see it in all the French restaurants and bistros. DC loves French culture.
It does, actually. And that's why a few years back, just after the main part of COVID, we held twice, 2 years in a row, a competition called Paris on the Potomac, because we wanted to make sure people could take photos of what they saw in DC that reminded them of France. And it's amazing how many arrears, not only architecturally, because a lot of the architects, for instance, of mansions on Massachusetts Avenue, what we call now Embassy Row, there were mansions, built by individuals way before 1929. And they were built by American architects, often who had attended the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris or in Lyon, in France in general. So that was already an architectural influence. Of course, the Pierre L'Enfant, the urbanist who designed the city, then many more areas, and of course, the abundance of croissants and baguettes nowadays. Yeah. It was not like that 30 years ago when I arrived in DC. It was very, very hard to find a decent baguette or a decent croissant. Nowadays, it's not anymore. It's very easy. There's so many French pastry shops and boulangerie. Yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere. How do you think that Alliance Française has played into that? Like, how has the organization evolved over these 120 years? And what are some of the biggest changes you've seen specifically here in DC?
Well, Alliance Française, when it was first created, probably was more of a social club and a place where a lot of American gentry or American aristocracy, if I can say that, they all spoke French, okay? They all spoke French, including Marjorie Marie Weatherpost, and the Anderson from Anderson House, Lars and his wife, Isabel Gardner. Everybody who was anybody in DC until, I would say, the 1940s and even in the 1960s spoke French. So there was always this fascination, like you said, with everything French. And we maintain the language and the social events at Alliance Française. But then in the 70s, there was a little change, not so much because of the Americans, but because the French created their own Ministry of Culture, and therefore culture became an instrument, a weapon of soft power, a soft diplomacy of the French government, whilst Alliance Française is a non-governmental non-profit. So it's not linked with the French government. And therefore, we became a little bit freer in terms of what we could actually organize in terms of events, but at the same time, we lost influence a little bit. We haven't lost it completely, but it's been eroded, I would say, and we need to always maintain and fight for our visibility.
Interesting. Well, it's really great that we're having this conversation right now, because another thing happening right now is Francophonie, right? Like, what exactly is that, and what countries are part of it? How is that determined?
France was a colonial empire for many, many years, actually over a century or more. And when the colonies started to become independent, they remained linked to France through Francophonie. There was a creation of the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, the International Organization of French-speaking countries, which is a bit the equivalent of the English Commonwealth, like the UK
Sure.
with its former colonies, except, the language is different. So we have member countries, who are members of the Francophonie organization, mostly because they were former colonies, and the French language is one, if not the official language, it's one of their official languages. Then we have associate members who actually are coming and will eventually become full-fledged members, whether they were former colonies or they had, like Serbia, they had a historical relationship with France since before World War I, for instance, or Greece, who has had an intense relationship with France, and to this day is still the first country in Europe where there are the most certifications of French language taken by Greek people, to prove that they speak French for work or for any, purposes they need. And then we have observer members of the Francophonie who may eventually become associate members and who may eventually become full-fledged member, but that's more of a long term. So that's what is the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. Now, at Alliance Française, it's a little bit different, because not only do we promote French language and the cultures of all the French-speaking countries, but our staff and our team is very much Francophone, as in not only because, some people come from former colonies, but because some of our staff and team and even faculty has actually chosen French as their dedicated language, and so we have a couple of teachers, faculty who are American born but speak French, and you would never guess they were not French. And we have, staff also who were born from a country outside of a French-speaking sphere, but who speak French just like me when I speak French. So that's why we Alliance Française, we want to respect the traditional Francophonie, but we want to extend it to the Francophonie from the heart as well.
Francophonie from the heart. I love that. That's such a beautiful way to put it. And it is cool that so many people at Alliance Française have such a deep love of the language and the culture, despite not having been raised in it. How does Alliance Française support Francophonie, especially in the years since COVID? Because I imagine that changed things quite a bit.
Correct. It has changed things quite a bit. During COVID, we were stuck because COVID happened right in the month of March of 2020, which is the dedicated month for the annual Francophonie Festival in Washington, D.C. Everywhere else in the world, there is one day, which is the 21st of March, sometimes 1 week, which is that week where the 21st of March is. But in D.C., with all the French-speaking embassies, not only France, but all of the other countries from Africa or the Middle East, or the Far East, who have French as official language or second language, that's why we have it during the months. And so in 2020 it was a shock, because all of our in-person events were cancelled at the last minute, including the Grande Fête, which really is a gathering of 20 to 30 French-speaking countries with booths, and food and drink and music and dance, etc. But we managed to offer to have online discussions, literary discussion with authors, whether they were in Africa or in France or in Quebec, with graphic designers. And we even managed to have one of our most sought after events, the Night of Poetry in French language. We had it online 2 years in a row. And that was amazing, because a lot of people connected from everywhere in the world. And it was, for some of them, it was 3 a.m., for some of them, it was midnight when it was 6 p.m. here in DC. And that was amazing. But then since COVID, we've gone back to mostly in-person events, including the Night of Poetry, which, because Alliance Française is such a small space itself, we have to rent the French Embassy Maison Française, which holds 300 people. And we have all these residents from French embassy, French-speaking embassies who come and read a poem in French or in the original language, and then the translation in French to celebrate poetry. And that's the 8th edition this year.
The 8th edition, wow. I'm really glad that you brought up events because I know that you have quite a few interesting ones coming up over the next few weeks. First off, we have to talk about this 120th anniversary soirée. What is that going to look like?
So we're going to be back at the residence of the ambassador of France. So the current ambassador is His Excellency Laurent Billy. And he has graciously accepted to hold our 120th anniversary at his residence, which is one of the most sought-after place in DC. So, of course, this is not a free event because it's our one and only fundraising event in the year, but it will be held on Tuesday, May the 13th from 6:30 to 8:30 or 9:30 p.m. Sometimes people stay longer, and we love it when they do. It will be $350, the first price, and then people can contribute more if they want to support our programs. There will be faculty attending that have been sponsored by a board member. There will be live music. There will be a little video about the trip that Alliance Française is organizing in the fall of 2025, also to celebrate the 120th anniversary. There will be opportunities to visit, the reception rooms of the residents, which are absolutely wonderful. And I do hope it's not going to rain because I want everybody to profit from the beautiful terrace of the French residence.
I love the idea of people being able to get kind of a behind-the-scenes look at this beautiful house and grounds. That's so exciting that you get to hold the soirée there.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but one of my favorites, and I know it's kind of in advertising, but you have to know that it's my favorite French pastry shop in DC called Poupon Pastry. They've accepted to do a special cake for the 120th anniversary, so that's going to be something spectacular because I used them last year for my daughter's bridal shower, and I can tell you they're really, really great.
That's a huge sell. Wow, I might have to look into tickets myself. You also have a night of poetry coming up on March 21st. I'm not even going to try to say it in French because I will butcher it, but can you tell me about that event?
Yes, like I said earlier, it's the 8th edition. But something that people have to know, it's just not like sitting in your seat, like you go to a concert and you sit in your seat and you listen to music. No, that's not like it is. Of course, there's a first part, with a opening of the event, and then each country coming to read or recite. Some people know their poem by heart and they recite it by heart. I'm so admirative of that. And that's the official part. Then, two exciting parts. We have an open mic session, which means people from the audience can just stand up, grab the mic, and recite their poem, whether that's their own poetry, which has happened, and it's wonderful because you have all these poets all of a sudden who come out, of the audience, that nobody has heard, and they have really, really good poetry. Sometimes they come on stage to recite the poem from their country that they want to be on stage for it instead of being in the audience. We have also a young man with his djembe who comes every year, and he does a slam rap in French and English, is from Senegal. It's absolutely fabulous. And then we have also a very exciting part for the learners because this will be hopefully the 3rd edition of the Prix des Jeunes Poètes, which is the prize for young poets. And we call out any students from 9th to 12th grade who is studying French, whether in a public or private school around, to send us their poetry, their own creation. And we have a jury who actually select one of the poems. And there will be 2 poems, again, chosen this year, one for native speaker of French, because you don't know, maybe we will receive a submission from Rochambeau, who's the French International School, but more than likely there will be more non-native speakers writing in French, because for them it's encouraging and promoting, to do that. It's a financial prize. We give $150 to each teenager who is the winner, the native and the non-native speakers, and they are able to recite their poem and to read their poem, in front of of the audience of 200 people. Some of them have even used the first one, I think, who actually did it 2 years ago. She actually put it in her resume to apply for university, and that was a big deal because, she had won a prize, just like the young teenager who won twice in a row the prize for the photo contest. And then, of course, afterwards, we have a post-event reception. All of the countries participating bring in something to drink or some finger food. So it's all very much convivial. So it's a great event to attend.
I love that. I'll have to tell my niece and nephew about it. They study French, and $150 is no small prize for a teenager.
Oh, absolutely. They don't have to be living in the DMV, okay? Even if they live somewhere else in the United States, they can send in their submissions.
Okay, great to know. Are there tickets for that? How much
free.
is that?
It's a free event.
Amazing.
It's a free event. You can find it on Eventbrite. All of our events are uploaded on Eventbrite. We have a page. We have 3,000 followers on Eventbrite. Of course, we have our own website, francedc.org, but the links to the tickets is on Eventbrite, and you can find it from our website or directly on Eventbrite.
Amazing. Looking ahead, what are some future projects or events that you're most excited about? Like, I hear that there's this trip to Toulouse in the fall.
Correct. So the big surprise for me was last year finding out I had been nominated by a friend of mine, obviously a couple of friends of mine, as ambassador of Toulouse to Washington, D.C. Toulouse, my hometown, they want to promote the region and the city. The region is Occitania, and Toulouse is the capital of the region Occitania. And so they nominated me. So I was ever so thrilled because I was absolutely not expecting it. So when I went, like I do each year almost, I went in the fall to Toulouse. I met with them, and they videoed and interviewed me. So there was a little interview. And then I said, well, I would like to do a few things for my hometown to promote it, because that's what you have to do, right? If you're an ambassador. And I created a class where I have about almost 10 students about, the Toulouse. And they found out, because most Americans know about Paris, the Normandy beaches, and then Provence. And that's it. And some people may know about Brittany, but they don't really know about the rest of France. And so that's the opportunity for me to showcase that beautiful region. It's the city. It's called the Pink City because, it's all bricks, and it's bricks since the Middle Ages and before. Even the Romans were using bricks in Tolosa at the time. It's a city of violets, which really are very fragrant. It's also the city, of course, of really good food. If you like duck, it's a city of duck food. And of course, it's a city also of anything aerospace or space related in France. Toulouse is where all of the airplanes were built since before World War I. And including, if you've read Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, well, he was working for Aéropostale. Aéropostale was based in Toulouse, and he slept in the hotel Le Grand Balcon. And if you come with us on the trip, you'll be able to visit that place. And you'll be able to spend 8 to 10 days in Toulouse with 1-day trip around, including, wine tasting, architecture, tours, all of that, and gastronomy, of course, because we're not going to forget that. And that should be between the 18th and the 30th of October of 2025, because it's the best season.
Wow. I mean, look, I don't know that much about that many regions of France, but I will come to Toulouse with you. That sounds like a great time.
It will be a great moment, yeah.
Well, are there any other events or anything that you want to highlight, projects coming up that Alliance Française is busy with?
Each summer we have summer camps, for thematic summer camps for kids aged 5 to 11. That's going to be the same thing again. Each thematic week includes a field trip to a place related to the theme of the summer camps. We have classes for adults year-round, so we just started this week. We started the early spring session. In May, we'll start the late spring. There'll be a smaller summer session for the adults as usual, because there's less people around in the summer, because it's more dedicated to kids. But we always have a lot of projects and a lot of classes year round. And of course, you can start at any level. You can start at completely beginner, zero, not even able to say good morning in French, but you can start at an advanced level. And we have a free placement test also for people who have studied French before. They're not sure of their level. It's all free. You can just take the test, and then we'll tell you where you fit in a class.
That sounds amazing. You really do have so many events, so many projects always turning. I'm very impressed.
Yes, we have a few musical events as well coming this spring. First of all, we're going to have on March 27 the Senegalese musician Sheikh Ibra Fam, who will come to Alliance Française for an intimate musical moment and also to talk about his life as a musician. Then in April, we'll have one of our long-standing member, Konstantin Kazakos, who's also from the world of Francophonie, is Greek, but a Francophone, and he will play, with his guitar, he will play French songs that are internationally known, including from the great Greek composer George Moustaki, who used to sing in French. And then in May, we have Maggie Paxson, who is an American author who wrote this beautiful book about the French Protestant resistance called The Plateau. She's also a beautiful singer, and she will come in May on the 16th to sing about the songs of France before the war and during the war, like the resistance songs. So we have three small, intimate concert, then that's going to be kind of exciting as well.
All of this sounds amazing. Sarah, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of these events and the history. And I love learning about Alliance Française with you.
Thank you very much, Priyanka.
Thanks for listening to this special bonus episode sponsored by Alliance Française. If you liked what you heard, check out their programming at francedc.org. We've also got that link in the show notes to make things easy for you. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye!